Okay, hello and welcome. Today is October 27th of 2024. I am Myles Harrison, and today we're just very quickly going to go through setting up Python virtual environments and also adding those virtual environments to Jupyter as kernels so that you can work from many different development environments in Jupyter. Okay, so let's get into it. So first and foremost, what is a virtual environment? Virtual environments are nothing more than a separate Python install with their own packages. Okay, so as you can see in the diagram on the right here, the way that this is actually laid out in your computer is just that there are literally different folders with different Python executables in them. And then you can also install different Python packages in those different folders. Okay. So it seems complicated, but it really is just different folders on your hard drive that allows you to run different versions of Python with different libraries in each environment. And really all that is happening with these virtual environments is that the path to your Python executable and other scripts like pip for installing packages get changed to one of these other virtual environments when you activate a virtual environment. Okay, so it's all really just folders on your hard drive. But the advantage here is that we can now have different development environments in Python for different projects, which may have different dependencies, which may conflict. And the other really important thing is that we make sure that we don't bork up our base install of Python by installing some new Python package that has different dependencies, or maybe even a package that is corrupted or something like that. Okay, so that's what virtual environments are. So how do we actually work with virtual environments? Virtual environments should be installed as part of vend in base Python. If they are not, it's fairly straightforward to just do a pip install virtual env to get that working. And you can create virtual environments in Python by just running python-m venv and then the name of your virtual environment. And what that will do is create a folder from the root of where you currently are in the terminal for that virtual environment. Okay. On Mac and Linux, to activate them, it's a little bit different than on Windows. So on Mac, you're sourcing this activate file, which is in the bin directory of the environment you create. Whereas in Windows, if you're using the command prompt, it is in this scripts directory, and it's a bat file. And if you're using PowerShell now, virtual env will actually create a .ps1 PowerShell script. Okay, so that's what that looks like. And now I'm just very quickly going to go through an example of setting up virtual environments in both a Windows environment and a Linux environment as well, which would work equally well for a Mac or Apple computer. Okay, so let me just flip over to my terminal. And I usually actually make a folder called vn for my different virtual environments. You can see I have a few here, including one for the NLP for Me course. I believe virtual env recommends that you make a hidden folder called .vn. But I usually don't do that just because I like to have visibility into where these things are and not have them in a hidden folder. Either way, the command to create a new virtual environment is the same. So I'm just going to say python-m vn. And then on Windows, I want to say // excuse me. And that is the current path I'm in. And then I'm going to put it in my vn folder. And I'm going to call this new virtual environment my new vn. Okay? And when you run that, what that will actually do is create a new folder with the Python base Python files to actually have the virtual environment run. Okay, so that will just take a second. And now if I say dir in the vn folder, which is where I made it, you can see that now there's a new my new vn folder that we just created. And if I am wanting to activate that environment, I'm just going to say /vn my new vn. And then again, it's in the scripts folder. And I am actually using PowerShell 7 here. So I would run the activate.ps1 PowerShell script. And when you do that, you will know that your virtual environment is activated because you can see here that it has the name of the virtual environment prepended to the path here in your command prompt, all right, or PowerShell. And now if I say pip freeze, you should see that there are very few Python packages, if any. Oh, it's actually empty. So there's literally nothing installed in this brand new environment. And the Python version we are running here is 3.12.6, okay? But now I could install a new Python package like pip install requests, and that will download and install those things. And now if I do a pip freeze, you can see that it's only got the request library, and then these are some dependencies for the request library, okay? To get out of that virtual environment, it doesn't matter where you are in the file system. You can just type the command deactivate. And now you can see that this prepending here of the virtual environment name for in front of the path is gone. And I'm back into my base Python install. And I can tell that as well because now if I type pip freeze, you can see there's a whole whack of packages that are installed in my base Python development environment, which are different than what was in our new virtual environment, okay? So that is doing that for Windows and PowerShell. Exactly the same in the command prompt. If you prefer to use a command prompt, the only thing that would be different is that this script activate is a .bat file, okay? So now we're gonna demonstrate the same thing in a Linux or Mac environment. So I'm going to go over to my terminal here, and I'm already in the VM folder. The command to make a new virtual environment on Mac or Linux is the same because it is executed as part of Python. So I just say Python m vn and then the name of the virtual environment I want to create, and I'm going to call this my new VM. And again, that will take a second to run. And now if I do an ls, you can see that there is a new folder here that has been created by that command, okay? And to activate the virtual environment, it's a little bit different than on Windows. I'm actually gonna run the command source and then // my new VM, and then there's a folder bin for binaries and the activate file in there. So you have to put the source here first, and then / the name of your environment, bin, and then activate. And now if I do that, you can see again, the name of the virtual environment is prepended to my path in the terminal. And if I do a pip freeze, you can see there is nothing installed in this brand new virtual environment. So I could say like pip install requests, and that will download and install the request library and its dependencies. And now if I say pip freeze, you can see that as before when we were on Windows, that the request library has been installed as well as the dependencies for it, okay? And same as on Windows, anywhere in the file system, once you've activated a virtual environment, you can deactivate that virtual environment by just typing the command deactivate. And you can see now it's dropped me down out of the virtual environment. This prepended text here is gone. And now I am in my base Python install. And if I say, you can see that because if I type pip freeze, you can see there's a whole bunch of different Python packages that are installed as part of my base Python install. Okay. And that is pretty much it for getting going with the virtual environments. So now I want to talk about making virtual environments easy to use in Jupyter, because sometimes we'll be working on multiple different projects that have different dependencies or something like that. And it is a bit awkward to sort of work in the terminal and switch back and forth between different virtual environments and then have a different Jupyter install in each and run Jupyter in multiple different virtual environments, okay? So lucky for us, we can actually use what are called Jupyter kernels, and there is actually integration between Jupyter and virtual And you can actually run different notebooks with different Python virtual environments in the same Jupyter session that you run out of your base Python. Okay, but there are a couple steps involved. You do need to actually activate your new virtual environment you want to work out of. And then the virtual environments that you're going to use with Jupyter have to have Jupyter, Jupyter, IPython, and this IPy kernel packages all installed. All right. And then after you add those packages, you do need to actually add the kernel to Jupyter. And to do that, you run this command here, python-m, IPy install --user --name, and then the name of the virtual environment. And then if you like, it's optional, but if you like, you can also set a nice friendly display name. And that is what will appear in Jupyter. And you'll see in a second, I'll show how the different kernels show up in Jupyter when you run it. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to my terminal. And so we have created a new virtual environment called my new env. So I'm just going to go ahead and activate that environment. And again, to activate the environment on Windows PowerShell, I type // n, the name of the virtual environment, which is just a folder. And then in the scripts folder, there is the activate PowerShell script. So if I run that, you can again now see that my virtual environment has been activated. And now I do need the Jupyter library, the IPython library, and the IPy kernel libraries installed in this virtual environment in order to add them as a kernel to Jupyter in my base environment. Okay, so I'm just going to install all those at once. Pip install Jupyter, IPython, and IPy kernel. So that will go ahead and install all the packages and dependencies for those, as you can see here. Okay, and now we can see that the install has completed, and I can just very quickly double check that by again typing pip freeze. And we should see now that there are a lot of different packages installed because there are a lot of dependencies for Jupyter. But the thing I want to check is that Jupyter is installed, Jupyter Lab here as well, and that we have the IPython and IPy kernel libraries installed. Okay, so once that is done, now we need to add this as a kernel to Jupyter in our base environment. So we are going to go ahead and run python-m IPy kernel install --user --name, and then the name of the virtual environment we are in, and that's my new VN. And I am actually going to give this a nice convenient display name. So I'm going to say -- display name and then put in quotes my new VN. Okay. And if you do all that, that should register the new kernel in Jupyter, as you can see here. And now if I deactivate my virtual environment here, I'm going to type deactivate. So now I'm no longer in the virtual environment, but now I can run Jupyter in my base environment and then just open a Jupyter notebook using the virtual environment, my new VM. Okay, so let's see what that looks like. Again, I'm in my base environment here, and I'm just going to run Jupyter Lab. And now you can see here that there is a new kernel that has been created here, which is my new VM, right? So usually you just see this one option here with Python 3, but now we have an option here that we have created this new kernel, my new VM, okay? So if I run Python 3 here, this would be in my base environment, and you can see that in my base environment, I do have the matplotlib package installed in my base environment, right? So I can import that package because that is installed in my base Python install. But now if I make a new tab here and I create a new notebook, which is backed by the my new VM kernel, as you can see here, and you can see over here, it says that it's backed by that kernel. If I said something similar, import matplotlib.pyplot as PLT, you can see it's going to throw an error because we have not installed the matplotlib library in our new virtual. Okay. So the nice thing here now is that I can run Jupyter from my base environment, and I don't have to switch between virtual environments to do development. I can just use whichever virtual environment I want because each virtual environment I have shows up as a different notebook with a different kernel backing it. Okay, so that will pretty much cover it for getting different kernels going with Jupyter. I hope that you have found this useful. Thanks very much for watching. And if you're interested in learning more, please check out NLP from Scratch at www.nlpfromscratch.com. Thanks very much, and we'll see you next time. Bye now.